What's up, guys? Dr. Seth back to help you solve your powerlifter problems. And I'm wearing my stupid flannel shirt with no sleeves on because I only own 3 shirts with buttons, and because of the pec surgery, I don't want to deal with a non button up shirt, so you're stuck with me in this thing for today. What I want to get into is what does it actually feel like to tear a pec, and what did it feel like leading up to the tear, and whether or not there were any good warning signs that I could have potentially thought about, and whether or not I, could realize that those even were warning signs. And the reason I want to get into that is I am fortunate, or I guess unfortunate enough, to have had my fair share of decent sized blowout type injuries thus far in my powerlifting career, to the point where I've kind of begun to realize that it feeling super sketchy or it feeling super painful while going up might not be the only sign or the only thing we should be paying attention to if we are kind of in a position where we're worried about a potentially vulnerable body part being able to do its job. Because, like, every time I've had a big blow type injury, I'm always like, afterwards, like, it didn't hurt going up. It didn't feel bad at all. It didn't feel sketchy. Why is my leg no longer attached to my body? And I've kind of come to realize that it might not be just as cut and dry as sketchy or painful in terms of whether or not we should think about modifying a session or modifying a damn selection. So, with the pec tear itself, if you guys have followed me for a long time, you would know that I had a pretty decent sized muscle belly tear in this pec in 2016. And ever since that tear, it has felt a little bit weird, a little bit wonky, just because there's kind of been a ball of scar tissue, a bit of a hole, and I would often feel like little pops, little pull sensations as I was pressing. And at first, that used to scare the shit out of me, and I used to let it hold me back for far longer than it should have. But later on, I've kind of realized that those little pops, they weren't anything that necessitated worrying. And like a lot of my bigger benches that I have put up over the last couple of years, I've like actually had one of those pops with the eccentric, still pressed it just totally fine. Now, the difference with the 518 that actually blew out on the meet day is that during that rep, as I was lowering it, I had another one of those little like pops that felt like mid muscle belly around that scar tissue area. And I was like, okay, this is fine. This is normal. I was like totally confident that I was going to get it, just because, like, even in this training session, or the training cycle, like the day that I doubled 474, my last warm up with 440, I had one of those pops on the first rep. Still triple 440, still went up, still double 474, totally fine, zero issue. And like feeling that bit of a pop on meet day with that 518, I was like, yeah, we're good. And I just kind of went, lowered it, got the press command, went to press, and then it turned from very okay to very not good extremely quickly. And with tears, with big tears, it's a pretty unique feeling, because first, like, the spot that tears is going to feel like someone lit inside of your body on fire, and then you're going to feel like imagine like you had like a ball of like shoelaces that's like clenched in your hand, and then someone just like pulled the shoelaces out of your hand, and you'd feel all the laces like squirming around. It's gonna feel like you have a flaming ball of shoelaces being pulled across your chest if it's pec tear, which really isn't all that pleasant. And like little tears, like it might feel like you're getting like a little like one little like thread being pulled, but like a big tear, just like it feels so freaking gross. It was like instantly, it's like as soon as I started pressing, it's like I felt like the big pop, the fire, the everything just pulling across, and I was like instantly knew like, oh, that's my pec. I am done for the day. And what's funny is like for myself, when it's a little injury, it's easy to get like frustrated and pissed off because I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a pain in the dick. Well, I gotta figure out how to deadlift with this now. I'd be like angry if it was just like a little tweak and I missed the bench. But because it was such like a big like, oh, that's it, that's all, I was actually able to stay pretty damn calm, just because I kind of knew that like there's no point in getting pissed off at this point, because it isn't going to make anything any better. And in terms of the pain, like right when it happens, a big tear is like super sharp, super hot, super painful. Like it hurts really, really, really bad when it happens. But the neat thing about a big tear is, because if it's totally pulled apart, as soon as it's done tearing, it's like the mechanoreceptors, the nociceptors, they're no longer getting pulled on, they're no longer getting stressed. And the pain tends to actually dissipate pretty darn quickly. So it went from like being like a holy shit, this hurts to it's definitely gone, but I'm okay within like probably 10-15 seconds. Like by the time I got back to the warm up room, like it was probably, like a 3 or 4 to 10 on the pain scale. Like it wasn't all that bad. Just the arm felt very, very, very gross. I had like a spasming lump of tissue underneath my boob, and it looked like I had a fucking breast implant because it was so big and puffed out over here. So it wasn't a pretty sight, but it definitely like it didn't feel all that bad in terms of the actual pain like afterwards. And like when it comes to if you feel a strain and if you feel a tear, if you feel a pop, the amount that it hurts immediately after almost has an inverse relationship to the severity, just because like if it's a minor tear and like stuff is irritated but it's still attached and it's still getting pulled on, it's going to hurt a lot more because it's constantly getting pulled on. But that's a good sign because it means shit is still attached. If it hardly hurts at all afterwards, it's probably a pretty significant tear, because the only way that you can have something, go that dramatically and not hurt is if it is all the way gone. And that was kind of like my reasoning for thinking like, okay, if it is gone, maybe I should still pull a token deadlift, just because my second bench was 496, and I thought like, if my pec's gone, I don't know how bad it is or how extensive the repairs need to be. I don't even know if I'll be able to bench again at this point. I was like, I want that last bench PR to stick, so I should probably at least think about pulling a token. And at that point, like everyone else was like, no, Seth, you're done, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and I'm kind of on the fence, and like it felt gross enough. I hadn't even like let my arm down at that point because it did feel that gross. And I'm just like, had 5 minutes left to change the deadlift opener. And I was like, okay, I am going to call Dave Tate because he is going to shoot it to me straight. And didn't mean to rhyme there. But anyways, so I called Dave and I was like, hey, yes or no question. And Dave's like, okay. And I'm like, my pec is totally gone. Is it a stupid idea to pull the token? And he's like, your pec's gone? I'm like, yeah, third bench it went. And he's like, and you want a PR to stick? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, it would be stupid to take a token if the pec is totally gone and not try to pull something decent afterwards. And like that was exactly what I needed to hear, because it was like immediately switch flipped. I went from like holding my arm being like to like letting it hang down, trying to shake it out, trying to move it around a little bit, trying to figure out if I could even do anything. And like my only friggin' regret from that meet day, other than ripping the pec off, that's kind of a regret, but not really. Like that's shit happens. My big regret after ripping the pec off is that I didn't think that I would be capable of pulling until it was immediately before I had to change my opener, and I didn't really have time to warm up, or I didn't have time to do anything. So I put the opener in as 75 kilos just because I didn't want to pull from a deficit, so I wanted at least one red plate on the bar, just because I did not even know if I'd be able to hold on to it, because since the thing popped off, like my pec minor was freaking the fuck out, my arm was totally numb, like I didn't even know if I'd be able to hold on to a bar. And I just wish that I would have had the balls to at least pull a warm-up to realize it'd be okay, so I could have went a little bit further on my pulls. But the 75 kilo went, well, I was like, this might actually be okay, so I took it, jumped up to 200 kilo. That went well. And then I went up to 275 after that, because that was kind of the jump that would let me hit a 2K total, which isn't the greatest, but all things considered, blown out pec, shitty squat on the day, 2K isn't the most terrible thing that I could total, and definitely wasn't my worst meet, all things considered, and I am proud of myself for sticking it out. But like that is the only regret, is that I didn't have the balls to at least test it out before taking a token opener to see like maybe I could have eked out something a little bit better, especially considering how my pulls last week, the day before the surgery went. But live and learn. Next time I blow something off, I might try harder. Hopefully there isn't a next time though. And in terms of like the signs leading up to it, already talked about how this pec has felt weird and funny for a very, very long time. So with it feeling, weird and funny, I didn't think too much of it during the warm-ups. But normally when it feels funny, or when it has felt funny, it has been like a little bit of pain, and it's like my groove feels a little bit weird. And with it feeling funny this time around, it didn't necessarily feel painful. The groove didn't feel weird. It's just that when the pec was contracting, it almost felt like ratchety. Like it felt like twitchy, it felt twingy, it felt like it wasn't totally coordinated, wasn't totally connected to what, I wanted to do with the bar. And that's kind of something that I've picked up on with previous blowouts, like with my groin too. Like that day warming up, it's like my warm ups felt they were strong, they were snappy, there was no pain, but it was a little bit like choppy on the contraction. And like maybe I am grasping at straws a little bit to think like what could have I been looking for better? What could have I been thinking about in terms of should I take this third? Was that like my second friggin' flew. It's just that like the pack felt like a little bit like stuttery. And I guess that for some people that's normal. For me that isn't entirely normal. I'm thinking like maybe that was a sign that I should have just passed a third and moved on. But you know what? We live and we learn. And I think the big moral of the story is that, again, shit does happen. When you are in the heat of competition, when you are trying to win a meet, you are going to make, I don't want to say bad choices, but choices that do lead you to take bigger risks from time to time. And with this bench at this meet, calling that third was me saying that I wanted a shot at winning the meet. I wanted a shot at getting best lifter at what is the biggest meet in Canada. And by taking that third, knowing how strong my deadlift was, I was giving myself a shot at that. And in hindsight, after squats didn't go well, yeah, maybe I should have flipped to let's just cruise to an easy PR total, not worry about the win. But I'm a competitor. I like to win. I don't even know if I like to win as much as I don't like to lose. So I wanted to go for it. And it's like, this is in a way a character fault, but I would almost always rather go for it and fail than to not try. And, sometimes in this case, it was a bigger failure than it could have been. But you know what? I still am proud of the day that I had, proud of sending it when I did send it. Not stoked that it turned out this way by any means. I'm not saying I'm happy that my pec tore, but I am happy that I do have another opportunity to show you guys how well big injuries can be handled and how well people can bounce back from them. And even with it being a relatively complex tear with both tendon and myotendinous involvement, I mean, my surgeon's confident, I'm confident. I told him that I'm going to make him look good. So this ain't over yet, and I know that I will hit another bench PR again at this point. So stoked for you guys watching this. If you're still here, hopefully you learned something. I don't mean to scare you with this stuff either, because again, it's like this, I don't want to say that like this is normal. I don't want to say this is part of the sport, but I want to show you guys that this stuff does happen. This stuff can happen, that we should be aware of it, but we shouldn't let it scare us from lifting big weights if the goal is to lift big weights. And bottom line really is that I think the worst thing that lifters do when they have an injury like this is that they go to the shitter and think that they're done, or think that they can't bounce back, or think that they see everyone who struggles and everyone who never does come all the way back, and they want to say like that's how it has to be. Like my goal with all the big injuries that I have or have had is I want to show you guys that it is not the end, and it is not the end of a career. And like, obviously, I would prefer not to get hurt at all, but if I can teach people a lesson from my injuries, I'm stoked to do it. So, appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you for sticking around. Hit that like button, hit that comment button. Tell me I'm full of shit and a dumbass if you think that, because, I mean, I might argue with you. I'd probably just call you a pussy, but that is what it is. Thank you for watching. Peace out. Hit the links below for more personalized help, and have a wonderful rest of your day.